Ken, it feels like it has been a long time in the making for you to join Bambu. I was thinking, how long ago did we first meet? Do you remember? Do you remember the fateful day?
Can you forget a day like that? Yeah, I think it's been about 7 years. 7 or 8 years now. And I remember you in the office across the road, across the way, and thinking, he's so loud. He's so excited. He has so much energy all the time.
So this is Ken McHugh, who is now part of Bambu. Ken, I remember that. So back in the Tiger Spike days, and you can maybe tell us a little bit about your journey and who you are and what you do. I like this question, how did you become you? But I remember starting Bambu and at Tiger Spike, and I was sitting at your desk of 4, and I could see, because you were focused on Tiger Spike like you should be. And I'm there doing Bambu, and Luke is there and Aki's there. And I'm like, yeah, let's do this. I remember I can see you going, hold on, is this dude just going to keep screaming in my ear all day? But anyway, well, give us a little bit of a background on who you are, what you do, how you became you.
Yeah, that's a good question. How do you become yourself? It's, I suppose, a long journey, even pre-Tiger Spike. So I've always been focused not on tech. Tech just happens to be a tool. Mm-hmm. I've been focused on problems. I enjoy problems. I get lost in problems. I like solving problems. I don't work well when there's no problems, which is interesting, because when you solve problems, then there's no problems.
I think you're never going to run out of stuff to do. It's not like problems are ever going to suddenly disappear from the world, right?
Yeah. So long journey. Born in Ireland, moved to Canada, first job in Canada after school. Didn't enjoy some of the problems being worked on, and was brought in by a really great person, Michael Henderson, to help him out on contracts. So then started going down to Detroit, mm-hmm. and we were doing very interesting contracts down there with cruise ships and moving inventory and live auctions. And the goal was that when you bought something on the cruise ship, it arrived at your door, at your home.
Oh, yeah. So you buy it and they... Yeah. So you had to solve that problem.
Yeah. So it was you finished your trip, you got home, and it was figuring out how far away you were, when it should arrive, so that you're not interrupted, you're unpacking, and your pictures arrive at the same time.
So not only figuring out literally to get it to the house, but the timing of getting it to the house.
Yes, yeah. So that was one of the pieces of that was the end goal of it as well. And those kind of things are like, it's those, that's a problem that it might not make a big difference, but it's a problem that's interesting to solve.
But I love that. I mean, again, so we're here today to talk about Bambu GO and a problem we're trying to solve. But that problem is so cool because it's not really a problem. It's not like solving world peace or whatever. But that is really like that idea. I like that kind of problem. Is like, because if it arrives the day before and no one's there, that's not going to work. Yeah. If it arrives a few days later, somebody gets frustrated. Was it a hard problem to solve?
It was. So there's all kinds of complexities in it as well.
For sure.
So people not going straight home, for example. They decide they want to go somewhere else first. So it's also getting input from them and trying to surprise them with a smooth... So the problem with the problem is when you solve it, nobody notices you solved it.
But that's the best. That's the best solution, right?
They just think, oh, look, it's shown up. This is great. And then... nothing. They don't realize everything that went in behind it. But that's where most problems, that's when you know you've hit on a good problem to solve, because nobody noticed you solved it. It just made everybody's life better. They just appreciate, well, they don't even appreciate it. They just, everything's smooth for them. So there's no hiccups, no friction, no.
It's funny, like I've worked in tech a long time. That's the first time I've heard it said in that way. I like that idea of if you solve a problem well enough, people either forgot or didn't realize it was a problem. But that's so hard to do because there's so many ways to mess it up on the way through.
Yeah. And as somebody who's solving those types of problems, what's very important to do, and you don't normally hear this, but hold on to the past, because you need to know where you've come from, like for your own personal value, to understand what you've done, what you've achieved. Nobody else is going to tell you because they don't notice it, which is perfect. But so you need to do that yourself. You need to understand, well, remember when it was here, and keeping pictures, keeping metrics, keeping that kind of stuff all the way through, just so you can see, I did that. I helped with that.
And it's a nice use case because people can understand it. There's a lot of problems in tech when people are talking about just all types of things in tech which are hard to understand for people who are not in tech. But that simple problem, you're on a cruise ship, you brought something, it has to arrive at the right time, not just arrive, which is, part of, because on a cruise ship, people come from everywhere. So that was a good place to start.
Yeah, and there was other things in it as well. So it was Park West Galleries was the auction house art gallery, and Peter Max was one of the artists there. So what he would do is he'd come in. So they'd set up the room for him with all of his paintings printed, and then he'd add another line to it or sign it in a different way or a different place or something like that so that they were all unique.
Wow.
They would then go on the cruise ship for the auctioning. So it was also then inventory coming straight out of there onto the cruise ship, ensuring the right ones went to the right cruise ships, and then the purchase after that, and then bringing the stock back. So what wasn't sold coming back to the gallery, and then it was going through the framing and all that kind of stuff as well. So there's a lot of things in the workflow that you don't realize that are there. And that's what I love. I love new things. But that seems pretty easy. And then you get into the details and it's just so much fun.
But easy stuff is like that. I hadn't thought about that problem. Although during COVID, when there was nowhere to go, I went on a cruise ship here, the cruise to nowhere in Singapore. And there was an art, oddly enough, there was some art selling. So clearly people, for some reason, I didn't, but they buy art on cruise ships. I'm not entirely sure why, but the same thing was happening. And they said, we'll deliver it to your door. So clearly it's an ongoing thing that has been solved.
Yes, yeah. And still, different ways of doing it now, different types of art, even going into NFT.
And so what happened? So where did it take you to?
So after that, then moved on to the UK. Mm-hmm. And from there, I was working for a small company, and it was doing things like publishing. So similar problem, different space. Oxford University Press, it was publishing, listing their books and all of that. And again, that process through publishing all there. And while I was there, I met up with probably one of my favorite people in the world, a person named Peter Stambridge.
Okay.
And he is somebody who pokes at everything. He has so much detailed knowledge in his head that when you say anything, if you use the wrong term, he points it out. But he sits down and takes the time to explain, and he encourages. So he actually convinced me to take my master's while I was there. So I did my master's at Oxford, and it was only because he convinced me to do it. I was at the point where I was thinking, education, the way it has become, what I've seen coming out of the universities and the colleges, they don't have the skills needed for today, was what I had felt at that time. What it gave me, so I felt it's just a piece of paper. Why bother?
Yeah.
But that it's not about the technologies that are there today. It's about the techniques that underseat those technologies. That's what university gives you. It gives you the thinking of how to go back to the base.
Yep.
So if you think when you're driving a car and you hear a rattle, if you know nothing about cars, it's a rattle. But if you can picture the car and you can picture how it's working, and you can actually hear that rattle and you can start to picture, well, it's probably this, it could be this. So by the time you stop the car and get out, you open up and you know exactly where to look because you've already thought through, because you understand the workings.
You can think through that, right? And certain people can, right? Because I think your brain is a problem-solving brain to a degree, right? So, and because it's fascinating, because my brain, probably it's just because too much is coming out and not enough coming in, doesn't think like that. But I've always I know I should more and more. I like that idea that, when a car rattles, I'm just like, oh, hell, man, the car's rattling. I don't really know. And I don't have that. But I think with the way that you think, you're right. You can stop, think there's a problem. You've got that base in how to fix it, because that's kind of the way that, partly why you're building Bambu GO today is that your brain thinks like that.
Yeah, it's a good point. And so I am extremely a visual person, internally visual. When I solve problems, it is pictures in my head. It is shapes in my head. It is moving things around in my head. And like even while I'm saying this, I'm thinking of the shapes and seeing them. And that's why I'm grabbing those shapes and moving them around and showing how they, and that's how my brain
Do you think that's
works.
a nature nurture? Like why is, I mean, you mentioned Oxford University Press. I actually just received a book in the post yesterday. My dad's just released his book on AI and he's been written all his life. And he saw a lot about the brain, nature, nurture, visual or not. Like my wife is very visual. Like she's a designer, interior designer in houses. So she can take a room and think this goes here and she sees it. And then I think in numbers or I think in people. Do you think for you it's a nature, nurture, you've learned it? What do you think?
I think that is hard to say. So my mom, she was studying to be a psychologist. So when I was between 6 and 10, I had so many tests done on me. But also a lot of the the tests that they do to understand your intelligence level. So things like the manipulation of shapes and all that kind of stuff. So I did a lot of that when I was very young. So it could be that, or it could be that I enjoyed those because my brain naturally works that way. So correlation, causation, it's hard to tell which it was.
We gravitate towards this natural thing that we like, that we feel this attachment to, right? I've always, when I try to think about shapes and things, I can't. Even the simplest visualization, you get these problems. This shape has been rotated 3 times and in this plane, so up, down, left, right, how many turns to re-rotate it back? I just can't. My wife looks at it and goes, Yep. 10. I'm sure for you, the same. Yeah. And so maybe it's a bit of nature, a bit of nurture. That's how your brain works. And that's how you end up doing what you're doing.
Yeah. But it's also a good point that people's brains work very differently. People see different things. I say see because I'm visual, so that's what it goes to. But a lot of people don't see. And what you have to do is understand, and it took me a long time to do this, understand that people don't think the same way you do. So if you're talking with people who don't, you need to try and find a way to convert how you think to how they think, so that it's easier to communicate. Because if you're talking to a visual person, like even when I think about data and I think about big data and I think about big data streams, I can see it in my head. I see the pictures of it. But you give that to an accountant and you say, well, look, you just move it here. What are you talking about? Move? It doesn't move. You don't move data, but you do. It flows. It's beautiful. And
But then, and I think it is, again, I like this idea that you can't, if you're always talking, which I do too much and not listening, but also if you want to listen to somebody, you have to, like you say, understand how they're thinking to a degree. Like I can't think like you can't think like me, but I have to, if you want to think visually, we have to be able to do that. And so as you've built stuff like, and again, we'll jump forward to a little bit like Tiger Spike. When I met you at Tiger Spike, you were solving problems, different problems each time for many different clients. Like at Tiger Spike, which is where I met my co-founders, Luke and Aki, and a lot of people who work at Bambu today, yourself, Haja, Baldip, Sam Bibi, who worked with us. Yeah. You guys were Tiger Spike. So before Bambu, you were solving problems for multiple clients. Is that fair to say that was your job, as it were, is to take a project that was stated as a problem and design it in a digital project going forward, right?
Yeah. And it was trying to find out. So one of the things I really enjoyed with Tiger Spike, and one of the things that I really hooked onto in Tiger Spike, I think I knew it beforehand, I believed it beforehand, but I didn't see it in action beforehand, is that you don't focus on what you're building, you're focused on who you're building it for. And when you do that, everything just follows along. So I had built up this concept of success factors in Tiger Spike, where there was a workshop you could go through to derive what the success factors were. And if you do that with people who haven't been exposed to it, they'll say, well, more revenue, more money. But that's the secondary. That comes after. If your success factors are things like saving a sales team 30% of their time so that they can focus on more things, that's a success factor. The revenue comes because of that. the attachment, the stickiness, all the things that are evil about software, that comes secondary. If you focus on that, you're doing the wrong thing. You want to focus on making it right, making it make a difference. And if it does that, other things will come. You have to force them in some cases because you're trying to get started out, but it will come. That you're making a difference. And if you can show you can make a difference, and if people can see you're making the difference, then it'll come.
I think this idea, it's just right. And again, I'm not a product guy. I haven't built stuff, but I have seen, I'm the guy that's meant to sell product. And again, as I kind of commented in a recent bit of content I put out, features and benefits, right? If there is no benefits, it doesn't matter how good the features are. It doesn't matter how good the product. So your point, you're trying to improve 30% on a sales team on their output. It might look beautiful, but if it's not doing that output, and that's the single kind of truism, if that's the right word, across all of these solutions that you've built.
Yeah.
So did it always work? Sometimes work? What do you find is the constant? Of course, if you get an outcome, people will be happy and it will work. But to get that outcome, is there a constant kind of idea or process that you go through?
Yeah, there's a few things that are important. Now, just following them, it isn't a recipe, right?
Everybody write down this recipe.
Yeah, I suppose it could be, but sometimes you're going to burn it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
We've all done that.
So the biggest thing is when you're trying to pull out what you're trying to do, and we had this conversation during Bambu GO. You need to understand what is in somebody else's head, and that is very difficult to do. So, and I gave this example as we were going through. Sometimes you'll walk into a room, you'll talk to 10 people, everybody will agree they're going to build X, and it's going to do Y, and everybody's going to be happy with it. And then everybody walks out of the room, and then you realize half the people are thinking it was a blue X, the other ones are red, the other ones are Helvetica. You got one person run off with Comic Sans. Everybody had a different understanding of X and what that actually meant. So you have to really make sure everybody's talking the same language, and everybody is focused on that same piece. And sometimes that means workshops where people fight, but you want that. That's healthy. If you have workshops where people just sit back and agree with everything, you know that one of two things has happened. This is so natural to them that they all understand that it is exactly the same, or you've got a couple of people in the room who are very heavy-handed and everybody else won't contradict them, so they just agree, and then they walk out and they have their disagreements afterwards. So it's getting to that. It's making sure you absolutely have understanding so that you know what you're doing. That is the starting point. It doesn't mean you're going to be successful from there, because you also then need to look at the intent. So, okay, we're doing this. This is why we're doing it. We're going to improve 30% on sales teams. But is that the right goal, right? Is that what the sales teams actually need? Because what you've got is a bunch of people in a room who think it is, but you need to also get from the sales team. So in those workshops, you need to have people who are on the ground, who are there suffering the problems, because otherwise it's just perceived problems. They may not be seeing those same problems, or they may be saying 30% savings is great, but what is better for me is to fill up my qualified leads. If you do that, that makes a bigger difference for me.
That everyone agreed it was X and Y, but some thought it was a blue X and some thought it was a red X. That's a beautiful, simple analogy, because I've been, and I'm guilty. I'm quite often the guy in the workshop because I'm full of energy. Oh, let's do this. Everyone's like, yay. And I'm learning more and more. People just say yes because they don't want to say no.
Yeah.
And that doesn't help me. Doesn't help you. Doesn't help me. It's how do you get around that?
Well, so the Bambu GO example, right? So at the beginning, we talked about what it was. The sales team talked about what it was. Everybody walked away with, this is what it is. And then we did the first presentation and you were, that's not what it is. So then it was, I think there was about 2 weeks of conversations with you, demonstrations to you to try and understand what it was that was sticking, because you were saying, that's not what it is. And it was saying, but okay, what is it? Well, it should be this. But that's what that is. Because again, that common language wasn't there. So when you use certain words, we were thinking other things. We were thinking the red X, the blue X. And then, so it was just constantly asking you questions. And then when you were on your trip in India, we had that call as well. And in that call, something just clicked. So whatever it was in that conversation, it clicked. And again, it's that visual thing. I could see it click in my head. I think on the conversation, I even told you, okay, I've got it now. I understand. And then went back through to the team and explained that same thing. Because working with the UX team, they are very visual as well. So communicating with them was a lot easier. The sales team, numbers driven, a little bit different. That was a little bit different to communicate with them as well. But it was then pulling that idea across and getting that said back in a way that I felt it matched what I now understand, because you said nothing different.
Yeah, right? But it's and look, I'm going to take it one step back and tell people what Bambu GO is, and we're going to dive into it. But I think we've been trying to build Bambu GO for a long time, and I think what you've brought is this process. And again, that's why I'm glad we spent the first 15 minutes talking about who you are, right? What is your process? How did you come to think about it? Because we've been saying the same thing. We haven't been delivering it. And I do remember, and I'm going to give people a tip about how to listen to people talk about something you're thinking, which was what I did in India. But yeah, no, it's a good point. I think we had been talking cross purposes to a point. But so Bambu GO, I'll describe the problem from my side. You can tell me how you see it, and we'll get into how we're building it. At Bambu, so when I started Bambu 7 years ago, I sat opposite you, talked incessantly, drove you crazy. Luckily, 6 years later, you agreed to join us to help build a product that we believe is a product that solves a problem. Why do we believe this? After 6 years of building robo-advisory solutions, if you're listening to WealthTech Unwrapped, you know what they are. So clones of a Betterment, clones of a Wealthfront. We've always built them in custom formats, using our tech repeatedly, but custom formats for each client, taking 6 months, 9 months, whatever. There's a huge section of the market who can't afford our 7-figure custom builds and are looking for a simple, instantly deployable, I use this word no code, and we've discussed that's maybe not the right terminology. If you're a small financial advisor and you need a simple digital wealth tool, a robo-advisory solution, you'd like to be able to kind of click and buy and deploy that to your clients. And we've always thought that if we can deliver that at a low-cost, simple delivery. And the reason we think it's a good solution is that we've multiple times over the last few years kind of launched it, haven't launched it, and have shown it to the market. The market's gone, yes, I'll buy it. And we've signed multiple clients, we've won awards, and everyone's like, yeah, this is amazing. We've also noticed that no one else has done it, so it must be quite hard. And so you started at Bambu 4 months ago.
Yes.
As our CTO and also as the person delivering Bambu GO. And so the problem we're trying to solve is, can we deliver a low-cost, instantly deployable, somebody with no technical knowledge can buy this product. And we believe financial advisors as a company have this problem, and they need this product. As I describe that problem, does that visually sound, or how would you describe the problem?
Yeah, no. So it's giving access to the knowledge of the financial advisors to anybody, but. There's a lot of products that do that. The difference here is that you're keeping the ownership of everything with the financial advisor. So it's building their business. It's making them better, and it's allowing them to serve more. Which again, so it's the user here. It's multiple. You're also trying to make sure that the advisor can actually positively impact their investors as well. And that's I think the biggest piece of it, because what you then get out of it is every single one that's launched is a slightly different flavor. It has different goals in it. It's focusing on different types of investors. It could be even focusing on different age groups of investors. You may get to a point where some of the advisors launch multiple so that they can set up the branding and the language slightly different as well, and bring in different, have different advisors in the background, setting up the portfolios for different types of people as well. So it'll be interesting to see how it evolves. But yeah, that I think your description is now that I understand it, now that we're talking the same language, it makes a difference.
And this little, I'm going to say famous bit, but I remember my darling wife does a detox every year. We won't get into that. In India, I've always promised to go. After 8 years of being a founder, it affects your health to a degree. So I went, and I wasn't able to join a call that the team had, Ken and the whole team, describing what Bambu GO was. So I listened to a recording, and this is what, if you're listening to this podcast, and you're somebody who talks too much in a meeting or is trying to understand what other people think about the problem that as a group you're trying to solve, don't go on the call, listen to a Zoom recording. And I was sitting there on the beach in Goa, and I was in the middle of fasting and my brain was a bit messed up. And I was like, no, so I was listening to the recording. I can't be part of it. And everyone's like, yep, that's what it is. I'm like, no, that's not what it is. It's not that. Stop this. And I would stop the video, and I was just like harassing you on Slack, or I was harassing Baldiv as well and Hadget, going, oh my God, dudes, what is? But it was a fascinating idea that we were both talking about X and Y, and we thought we understood X and Y. But again, we think differently in different outcomes. And I think you have been the right person to drive that forward, because you then said, okay, let's take a step back. Let's understand what this is. And I think your point is we are solving a problem for the advisor that they can then deliver this to their customers and onboard more customers, more retail customers. I mean, we are only a couple of weeks away from launching this. How do you feel about where we are today?
Yeah, I think the team that have come together for this is absolutely amazing. They've done a really good job. And we had a call on Monday and we ran out of time, but I meant to tell them that they should be very proud of what they've done. They've gone through a lot of stages that normally takes months to do before a build starts. Mm-hmm. And they've done it all very, very quickly. The UX team immediately jumped onto value. When there was that shift, it was, okay, got it. And then an immediate shift over. There was no, it was just, how do we do this? How do we do this better? How do we make sure it's done? Everybody got very much involved. The front end, back end team, the relationship between the leads of that team, it's an interesting relationship. I'm still myself trying to discover if it's a healthy or unhealthy relationship, but they get things done and they communicate with each other very well. Yeah. And I think that is the biggest part. There's a trust there. There's a trust within the team, a trust that some of it was already there and inherent, but some has come through. In order to get a team to fully trust each other, they have to go through hard times together. Yep. I think some of them have already, which helped, but there was some new people in the team who hadn't. But I think they've started to build on that bond that's there as well. So there's no arguments within the team. There's discussion. There's frustrations. There's all that kind of stuff.
But that stuff is good. Like, again, they're like, of course, Matt, Ben, these guys who are building it. Like at Bambu, we have been through ups and downs, left and right, and we've built some amazing stuff. We've built some absolute rubbish, right? And we've learned when we build good stuff, bad stuff. But we've also, again, I like this idea. We can disagree with each other all day long. It's fine. Yep. And we can be frustrated. But it's healthy. Like, I respect your view. You respect mine, Matt, Ben, all these guys. But because I think at Bambu, we've spent 6 years building this stuff, right? And we've banged our heads hard against the wall, right? And it hurts sometimes. And people have screamed at each other, in a healthy way. Now it's like, okay, we're still here together building this stuff. All right, guys. We know we can do this. And I think we put on the Bambu GO team people who have been in the trenches, who have had that battle one experience, and people who will say it as it is. And sometimes that comes across in a stronger way. But that's, as you say, if everyone's just sitting in the room nodding nicely and agreeing, you're not going to build real stuff.
There's a book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, and that's one of the dysfunctions is if nobody says anything in the room. You have to have debate because there's always alternative ideas. You have to understand them. You have to poke through. You have to see. And again, going back to Peter Stambridge, this is why I love him so much. He and I get into fearsome fights. And even to the point, I remember one time I think we were in Cardiff, and one of our colleagues said, "Guys, calm down. No, this is okay.
This is okay.
This is how we do things." Because we're not fighting to say, I'm right, you're right. We're fighting to get a better idea. And often what happens is he'll come in from one point of view, I'll come in from another. We'll leave with a completely different point of view together that is better than what each of us had come in the beginning. And that's what you need debate for.
I would love to see the two of you discuss, because clearly you have good views on product and everything. I have this, I've commented on this a lot. I learned this from a guy called Mike Scott. Strong opinions loosely held. So if you have strong opinions strongly held, you don't learn anything. Yeah. And I've been very guilty of that. I've had very strong opinions, for example, on crypto. I think it sucks, right? But if that's strongly held, I'm not going to learn anything. So I have strong opinions loosely held, which means I can change my mind, right?
Yeah.
I can be absolutely sure that crypto sucks today. And if somebody changes my mind, I can be absolutely sure tomorrow it's amazing, right? I haven't quite got there. But so coming back to Bambu Go, not many companies have built this. So in the world today, so we at Bambu are going to launch a robo, and 2 stages. The first stage is non-transactional. So it's kind of more just a front-end robo that you can put onto your own platform. And then we're going to launch it as a transactional platform. $99 a month for your own robo, which we think is pretty show-stopping, multi-tenant. And then we're going to make it transactional. Again, Ken, you're kind of newer to the wealth tech world.
Yeah.
I know today that very few companies have launched this. Just asking you as a product guy, is it because it's really hard to build? Is that fair to say? And we can talk about the commercial aspects and whether it is actually a problem that needs solved, but is it very hard to build?
Yeah, it's a good question. So talking red X, blue Y again, for me, hard is a very controversial word. So hard means that for most people, saying something is very hard means it's you can't get to a solution. It's very complex.
Mm-hmm.
For me, tech in general is it's a complicated problem. It's not a complex problem, which
mm-hmm.
means then that there are steps you can take to make it easier.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that it is a complicated problem. What's actually more difficult, and probably why a lot of people haven't done it, is the integrations across that need to be done, but also again that team. It has to be the right team, and you always you have been through yourself looking at investment and investors, and what they are always looking for is execution. Anybody can have an idea, anybody can think about doing things, but can you actually do it? But doing it isn't just the physical getting in and coding. Can you have a team that can work together, can be cohesive, can execute, be efficient, be effective, have fun afterwards?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think is one of the key differences here, is that the team is very, very good. The software itself, yes, it's hard in that there's problems in here that I haven't solved before, which I've enjoyed. There's problems in the transactional piece that I definitely haven't solved before, and I'm really looking forward to getting into to see how it works and how it flows together. But it's not impossible to build, and that's kind of where there's that. For me, nothing is impossible. You just have to figure out a way to get there. Some things are so difficult. Yeah. It's going to take a long time to get there, but some things are just on the cusp and executable. But when you make that breakthrough, it feels very good.
Yeah, and look, I think it is, again, we're not putting men on the moon for this one, which has been done, but I think it is, having a robo-advisor that a smaller company with limited budget, limited tech resources can deploy to mass retail customers is clearly a thing that people want. We know this because we have asked hundreds of firms and we have pitched them, hey, it's going to cost you 6 or 7 figures to deploy your own mass retail robo-advisor. And they're like, that sounds lovely. I just don't have the money, time, team. We went back and said, we can do it for, right now it's $99. It will be more expensive for a transactional, but still just a few $100s. Is that something you would buy? And having said to people that is available, almost always it's been yes, and we've signed people up, but they've always said to us, we can't find this. It doesn't exist. So maybe commercially people haven't thought about it, but the more I think about it, it's a bit like you say about the team. It's taken us 6 years to work out how to build this. I don't think you can just get a bunch of random people. Is it intellectually at the fringes of intelligence? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It is a robo-advisor that can be deployed and built. But when I think about it, like what we're saying is, depending where you're listening to this, if you're in America, it's a Betterment or a Wealth Option, in Singapore, it's Stashaway or Nutmeg in UK. Each of these firms has 100 to 200 engineers to build this single robo-advisor. What we're saying is, with our team of, how many in the team for you, Ken? 5, 6? 6, 7 people we're building. So they have hundreds, we have 6. Now we have all of our hard-won experience. We're going to build a platform that allows anybody to deploy your own version of a mass retail robo.
But it really changes the story when you say, why don't you launch your own in 10 minutes and send it out on your LinkedIn profile? It's a very, very different perspective taken. And then again, you think about the things that we do at the build and how difficult they are. That can be the step that comes in after as well. It's that build up to there. So it's anybody can do it. It's I'm super, and I'm super proud of the team. They're awesome.
It's this. I saw it the other day, and so as you know, I get excited when I wake up in the morning. Yeah, let alone I saw part. So again, if you're listening to this, and again, Ken's a visual person, I'm not. Just think about you can have your own betterment immediately, like instantly deployable. You click, drag in your name of your company. So you're a small financial advisor. You want a robo for mass retail. You can put in your logo, your name, what products, your risk questions. But the bit and so you end up with a beautiful looking robo that you then get a URL and you can send to your client. But the bit I got so excited about was an advisor can literally click, I want 3 risk questions. Click. And the robo changes and they can see their robo growing in real life. And it's built so simple, even Ned could use it. I'm not a tech genius. So maybe talk a little bit about that back end piece, because to me, that looked like magic. It really looked like magic. And I got so excited. So maybe talk a little bit about that piece.
Yeah. And that's the whole piece underneath it. So there's I have a big belief in separating API from front end. A lot of people merge them together. But then when you do that, you have teams that cross over, they take shortcuts. So it gets so hooked in, you can't separate it again. So here what we've done is we have a complete separation of the front end and the back end. The back end has been built out. Now, yes, very quickly, build as well. So there are more areas of flexibility we've marked to put in place as well for going forward. But it's built intended to be as flexible as we can be across all of it. So it's not just while the front end gives you that ability to adjust the goals and the risk questions, we're looking at more as well. So more abilities to change flows and things like that as we go and as we see the need for it. But that back end is built up on an API, which uses our API library as well. And it's been made to be entirely configurable by the end user themselves.
And I think I don't want to say we're lucky at Bambu because we spent 6 years doing it, but we have the pieces to be able to do this. We have the API library, we have the knowledge, we've been through this before. We've built and launched Bambu GO as a single tenant, so customizable, which we found wasn't the right way to do it because it was kind of like a halfway house. Oh, it's kind of instantly deployable, but it's not really, and it's going to cost you a lot more. So we've been through the hard knocks of not getting it right. Now, we don't know if we've got it right today. We could launch this, which we're launching on May the 15th. I will say that, internally first, but we'll get it out there. But even as a product guy who's been doing this a long time, you don't know if it's going to work, but obviously we're both biased because we love this. What is it that makes you think about Bambu GO when you say you're very proud of it and looking at it? What are the kind of features of a product when you build it makes you think, okay, this is the right product?
Yeah, there's a few things, front facing and back facing. So first of all is when you look at where typical products and projects where the post-release where there's the issues is the sales team coming and saying, have we sold it yet? Have we sold it yet? Have we sold it? Give me the report. Show me where. So all of that, and we're going to go through a bit on Friday with this as well. But there's a very different amount of metrics that has been captured than what we would normally capture. So it gives the sales team what they need so that they can understand where they are, so they don't have to impact the product team. So a lot of that has been done where we've created as much as we need to do to make sure that we can remain focused post launch. The front end side of things, again, that's separation. So some of the other things, when I do things, I have this principle, 2 birds, 1 stone. If you do something, make sure it impacts at least 2 places. If you're doing something that's linear, you can't scale it, there's no point in doing it. You're wasting your time. Not a good way to say it, but effectively that's what it ends up being. So what we've got out of this, the front end side as well, is we've built up, so we started right from a design library, which the design team put together. We started building out that design library. So all the components from the Bambu GO are actually built up on that design library now as well, which means that the changes can flow through. So to your point about the single tenant earlier on, When we make changes now, we'll be making changes to thousands of advisors.
Yep.
We'll be making things better for thousands of advisors, where in the single tenant, it becomes very difficult to do that. But that's there. And what else has come out of that is that's reusable for us. So that's the two birds pieces. So if we did need to do a single tenant version for whatever reason, we can pull that and we use that as the base. So we are 70% of the way there. Maybe not quite that much. I'm being optimistic.
Yeah, well, it's good. You've got to be optimistic and realistic. But again, and to come back to this point about the magic of the back end part of it, right? So we have a single code base, and so all the advisors, if we make it something better, we make it better for all. But on the front end, because an advisor can decide what color it is, what content it is, how many risk questions, how many screens, they can make those choices, what product. Everyone's actually getting their own robo-advisor.
Yeah.
Which is kind of mind-blowing, right? Again, when I say this, you can have your own robo-advisor for $99 now. The first version is a non-transactional, but very quickly it will be transactional. This ability within 10 minutes to design, build, deploy, and send a URL of your own robo-advisor. I mean, no one's done that. Like it is, again, we're in our own little world of wealth tech. It's not like, again, we've solved world peace. But I think, as you say, that's more than two birds, one stone. That feels a whole flock of birds.
We're
getting at.
I think we've got an awful lot out of this. There's also some additional knowledge that's come through. And different experiences with the team. So one of the comments that I really enjoyed getting was that it was after one of the workshops, and somebody said, I didn't realize the other team thought that way. I didn't realize. And it's just that, okay, so now you start to see why it's important, how you work together. So a lot of that has come out of it as well, where there's a deeper understanding and connection across the teams.
Yep.
And it's hard we're pretty distributed as well.
Yeah.
But it's worked. It's been pretty amazing. And the being able to launch, and I say 10 minutes because it's a nice round number. I will bet you that you could race somebody and probably get it done in under 2 minutes as well.
Well, as we famously did with Kevin O'Leary on stage a couple of years ago, we built and deployed our own robo in 7 minutes. Now, we didn't end up launching there due to a variety of different factors. But I remember we walked off stage and we ended up winning that event. And we signed up 7 new advisors right away. People are like, so hold on, I can you literally actually just build a robo on stage? I'm like, yeah. And I think there was almost this kind of slight disbelief.
Yeah.
You'd already pre-built it in the background, right? I'm like, no, we pre-built the tech, the platform. Of course, we spent years building this platform. But the actual act that I showed you, you're a financial advisory firm. You want your own robo-advisor. There is now a platform that allows you to design, build, deploy. Of course, it doesn't have every feature in the world, but I had a guy on my show the other day, actually, I think you would love to talk to. I mean, I don't know if you listened to Ned Lowe, who I interviewed. He was the CTO at Singlife, you should definitely have a coffee with him. I think you would love, he's a problem solver as well, apart from also being called Ned and the only other guy I know called Ned. But he's got a really good way of thinking about stuff. I think you would massively enjoy talking to him. And he said this phrase, you can't start by building something complex. You must start by building something simple and make it uncomfortably simple. Get it out there. I'm not going to tell everybody that Bambu GO answers every single question, but is this the right base to build your robo from that you can deploy for the right amount of money in the right amount of time? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we've built something that's very complex and complicated in the back to allow simplicity at the front.
Yeah, and I really like that. So my view on software, again, my visual, I treat software like a garden, as opposed to like a building or architecting or engineering. My feeling on things is you start with a seed. You start simple. And you shape things in a way that you can allow growth, you can allow shifting, you can allow changing of patterns by the end users themselves. So if you constrain everything immediately, the end users can't explore, they can't do anything, they can't come up with new use cases. You've basically told the users, we know what you want and you don't need anything else. But if you broaden those constraints and allow the users to move around things, what they start to do is they start to create patterns within the software or the product or the process or whatever it is, which are more effective and efficient. And then you take those and you codify those and you say, okay, that's obviously a better way. We didn't think of that. So now we'll make sure everybody does that because it's more effective. And that's when you tighten the constraints. So when you think about gardening, what you're doing is you're putting up the trails for the roses to follow and all of that kind of stuff, the terraces, and you're letting the garden grow the way it naturally should. You're just making sure that it's clean and you're pulling out the weeds. With software, it's the same thing. If you start with a big idea and try and build that big idea, you're probably building the wrong thing. But if you start with a small idea and let it grow, then you'll get to the right place with the right users.
It's a great analogy. Like, I think you're right. I mean, we've taken a long time in the bamboo, and bamboo does grow in gardens, to grow the bamboo. And there's been some ugly weeds like along the way, right? I think we've come back to training it a little bit. Again, you should definitely talk to Ned. He talks about this idea. We both live in Singapore. You've been in the jungle. You see these old trees. They have these kind of vines that creep up it. They kill the tree.
Yeah.
Ned's idea is that that's the new software taking over legacy software. It does it slowly and then kind of replaces it without you really seeing it.
I love that. Yeah.
It's, and what you're saying is you can plant a garden, the row it's in, but it's going to take its own shape. You're trying to control it in a certain way to deploy it. I think with Bambu GO, I mean, we've planted so much in our wild jungle garden here at Bambu, but now we're trying to get some order because, Bambu GO, because we are deploying it in a multi-tenant environment. I mean, look, we're coming to the end. What's your thoughts? I hate to ask this kind of, where does Bambu go? But look, we're at the stage, we're almost at the start line. We're about to launch it. We've done a lot of work to get here. What's your, I hate to say vision. I think that word's like a overused word. What's the journey?
Yeah, it is a good question. So I have a lot of ideas, but again, that doesn't mean anything. So the first thing to do really is to see. So I'm really looking forward to going back to some of the advisors we talked to pre-build.
Yep.
Just to seeing what their take is on it. I'm really looking forward to. So Stephen has put in a load of metrics. So looking forward to seeing how people move through the journey that's there now, and then seeing which ideas might seed something. So I have a whole bunch of ideas to put in, but some of those are going to be throwaway. Some of those are going to be, well, let's explore it. Doesn't work, throw it away. Some of those are going to be, they will grow out as well. I think the primary focus though is just the transactional piece, getting that in. And watching. So it becomes nurturing then. So if you, where you want, what you want your garden to look like, you want it to be comfortable and beautiful. But you don't know what components are going to be there to get there. And you start looking at how to leverage things that exist. So instead of using pesticides, you might put slugs in. So you're trying to create that bio balance. And I didn't intend to go down that with the.
No, but I like it. I like it.
So it's trying to do that. So it's looking at what pieces work, what pieces don't work, how we augment some pieces, how we dampen some pieces because it doesn't make a difference or it doesn't have the impact we intended. So it's really just going to be that now. It's reacting to what the users need, what makes it easier for the users. I know Stephen has plans around putting in training on how to market it, right? Because that then
it's a great thing.
Yeah. So all these things there's a whole load of little ideas that we are now ready to try out, and we have users to try out on, which is great. Users I shouldn't say to try out on, to see how it impacts, to get feedback, to watch how it shapes as well.
But I think it's great. Like, I think you've brought, like, just even in this 50 minutes we've been talking, there's a lot of things I've learned about how you think about stuff, right? In terms of that problem solving, the visual way that you do it, the process, which is I think that's really important for us. I think at Bambu GO, we've just like, oh, this is a product. Let's just build it. I don't mean it in that way, but I think your thought process has given it enough structure that, hey, look, we're about to bring it live, and it's been many years to get there. So that is good that we get there.
Well, seriously, all credit to the team that's there. The amount of work and the way they interact is absolutely amazing. I've really enjoyed it.
No, they're good. It's good people. Hey, look, one thing I'll say at Bambu, we're not short of people who are willing to try, right? Sometimes we have lacked focus, and sometimes I think, a little bit comes from myself. I'm like, oh my God, let's try everything. I mean, it's not the right idea. No. Ken, I appreciate you for everything you've done for Bambu, and I think we're both excited for Bambu GO going live.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on this. I've really enjoyed this. And just in general, thank you. I've really, really enjoyed this last 4 months.
Good stuff. We don't let any of our guests go without two completely and utterly random questions, which one's not random because I actually really, I use this question a lot, so it's not random, right? So you've watched Back to the Future, of course,
yes.
Right? So you are standing next to the DeLorean. You're allowed to get into the DeLorean. You can set the flux capacitor to any time in the past or future that you choose. When would you set and why?
Oh, yeah. Well, I definitely wouldn't go to the past. You are where you are, what you've done because of everything that's happened, right? And I'm quite happy with where I am, what I've turned into. Whether other people are or not, I don't know.
You can't control that, man. Yeah. You do you, all right?
Yeah. I've always I hate having to sleep because I feel like I'm missing things out.
I hate you.
I hate the thought of things ending eventually. Mm-hmm. So if somebody were to say, here's a pill, live for 1 million years, I would love to see that just to see how it evolves. So what I would probably do is cheat a little and do steps along the next 100 years just to see what's new, what's happened, what's different, what's changed as well.
So you'd have some like a few different steps and you could look into the future and see what happens.
Yeah.
And then choose which one to go to.
Maybe it didn't count if I didn't step out of the car. So I could just go 100 years, have a quick look around, 100 years, quick look around, just to see what we're, and always all through history, it's always been looking next and saying, we're at such an important time in history. And we are. Every day we are. Every day is what tomorrow is different. You can see massive things coming in. You can see the difference that the technology has made. Like in my lifetime, the things that I have to teach my son about as, what's that? It's a phone. What? I mean, it's connected to the wall. But that just seeing what those differences are and seeing what types of things happen and how humans evolve, what we do as well.
Cool. We'll give you that. All right. You get to have dinner with one person, alive or dead. Who is it?
Oh, yeah, good question. So there was a time I would have immediately answered Elon Musk. Mm-hmm. And that has changed seriously in the last few years. I admire the things he's doing. I don't admire how he's doing them. But yeah, I would say I would look to have a nice dinner with Da Vinci, sit down and just chat. I love how cross-domain thinking, the inventions of things, taking something from one space, applying it to another, and it becomes game-changing in that other space. And it's just the application of technology across.
And while I am not a great culturist or historian, I know that Da Vinci had a lot of ideas. And for all of you who are listening to this, who don't see it, I speak to Ken most days. When he's at home, in the back of his wall, he has these amazing drawings, right? Which to me look like art, but they also look like problem-solving kind of pictures. So I can see why you pick Da Vinci as, maybe you are not Da Vinci yourself, but a lot of the ethos. Okay, so we'll give you Da Vinci in 100 years' time. So if we, by magic, we can bring Da Vinci back and the both of you can sit in 100 years' time.
I'd be a happy camper. Yeah.
Ken, we'll leave it at that. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks
Appreciate
very much,
it.
Nate.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to WealthTech Unwrapped with your host, Ned Phillips. We hope you enjoyed the episode. Join us weekly as we dive into the ins and outs of wealth tech and speak with our esteemed guests about the industry. If you like what you heard, help us reach more people by sharing the podcast as well as leaving us a 5-star review. That's all for today. We'll catch you next time.